There was a series of crises and traumatic events that happened over about a 4-year period, one year after the next. And it was in 1992. And even though I was in the health field and presenting for Tony Robbins, the Living Health seminars, and had been certified in so many different areas of health, as in complementary medicine, actually, I ended up getting diagnosed with a basketball-sized tumor, and it was a radical crisis for me because I had to question everything I knew, all the areas that I was certified in, and I was really catapulted on my own healing journey. And the great gift of that healing journey is I founded a method for all of us to go on our own healing journeys that helps you get access. That is something that is called our phantom cell memories. And what we know about the cells and our emotions, and this was a radically life-changing and emotionally healing experience for me. And I healed in only 6.5 weeks' time from that basketball-sized tumor. And the gift of that is that, and what science has found about our emotions and our bodies is that when we feel a strong emotion and we repress it, it releases a quantifiable biochemistry into our bloodstream, which will go to certain cell receptors and block them, rendering the cells incapable of communicating with the rest of the cells in the body. And if over time illness happens, it happens where the cells are blocked. And conversely, what's also known to be true is that when we feel our emotions very naturally and freely, like a child does, our cell receptors remain open. And so part of the gift of my journey was spontaneously, I was guided to find a means to get access to these blocked cells and to go through a radical process of release and letting go and understanding and forgiveness, so that when new cells were born, they were born devoid of that old programming as new regenerative cells. And so I thought that was the big crisis in my life, actually healing without drugs or surgery from this huge, massive tumor. A year later, I was living on the beach in a tiny beach shack on the sand in Malibu, and they had those big mega fires. That was a huge wildfire that was declared America's greatest national disaster. 287 houses went down, and it was a massive disaster. And of course, our house was the only house that went down on the beach. And we weren't at home when this big fire happened. We were giving seminars in a different part of the country. And so we lost everything. Even our cars exploded, and we didn't have any insurance. And so we were financially wiped out, which is what a lot of people are undergoing right now. So they're not just facing life crises with illness. Some people are losing their jobs. Others are losing their ability to keep a roof over their heads. And so it was a huge life crisis to be financially just wiped out. Now, we somehow managed to cobble our lives back together again. And we ended up, down south of all the disaster, and it was a year later. And we're here in 1994. And during this year, we'd cobbled our life back together, and friends had offered us like a mattress from their garage, or another friend had offered us their old dishes that they were no longer using us. And little bit by little bit, we'd cobbled our life back together again. And then the man who I considered to be the great love of my life, my husband of 20 years, ended up telling me that he'd fallen in love with a much younger woman. And he ended up leaving me for that woman. And we got a divorce during that year. And again, it was this huge, massive crisis. So many of our students and our journey beloveds that they'd never contemplated divorce. And yet suddenly divorce is up in the air with them, and they're just not knowing how to cope with this containment. And part of the issue that, no one ever gave us a manual. How do you cope with already? And so what's happening is life is triggering us and is pushing our buttons, and our deepest issues are coming up to the surface, and we don't know how to deal with them. And I'm just so grateful that with the journey, I now have the tools to actually go on a journey and literally clear at the deepest level what's triggering my surface reaction to everything. And so, yes, I ended up going through a divorce during that time. And in that same year, I lost my job. And so I lost everything. My livelihood, my marriage, my job, even ability to put my roof over my head. And I can honestly say the only thing that sustained me during that time was the journey process, because it gives you a means to come home to a peace that underlies all the chaos in life that's going on right now. And the truth is, all of our lives are in chaos. We do not know what is going to happen from day to day, from moment to moment. The rules are changing. The goalposts are changing. What we're allowed to do, not allowed to do is changing. Whether we have a job or not after this whole mess is over with is changing. And we're all of us living in the unknown. And I just feel the only way I could have coped with this crazy, wild time is that the journey is a beautiful process that welcomes you deep into your deepest fears and into your deepest pain, and to go beyond that into a place of peace, a peace that underlies. And I'm so grateful that we have, those many of you, millions have read my first book, The Journey. And yet I wanted to make that available to everybody, all of humanity, and download that book and get this life-changing work and the process work to really face and clear this time, and also find out more about seminars and retreats that you can go on to in an online way, can support you through this unprecedented time that we're living through.